Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show. We are 10 minutes away from starting the live stream. So if you're watching this on a replay, you can either hang out with us or you can watch Speed Ahead. Why would you watch this? Let's change. We're changing things on the website. My Network Plus study group is live. Click here to join us, and that's in /live. We're going to save our changes. That's updated on the website. Very nice. I hope everybody's doing well here. It's Pi Day. 3/14. March the 14th. Halfway through March. How'd that happen? Let's see. We've got websites updated. The chat is updated. We can close that. What else do I need here? I need to probably get a couple of things going here. Get that there. Get this here. We got questions up and running on Socrative. Instructions are at professormesser.com/live. You obviously won't be able to do anything live if you're watching this on the replay. Let's see. We need to get some Keynote going here so that I can do a camera check. Look at that. All right. Camera check then. My buttons are way over there. Let's see. What are we? Number one. Hi. How are you? Number two. Number three. Me up there. How do I look? How am I centered? It's pretty good. It's decent. It'll have to do. And camera 4. So everything's working. We have to start recordings though. Nothing is recording. Let's get this recording going. How'd that happen? Because that's the kind of day it is. Now we have to do the voiceover stuff for the podcast. Bear with me one moment while we do this. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This study group was recorded on March 14th, 2018. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. And let's do the after show. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group After Show. This after show was recorded on March 14th, 2018. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Nobody's made it to the chat yet. Did I turn on the chat? It's always the interesting part. Network plus study group is .com/live. And well, hey, there is the chat room. Is there? Hey, chat room. Thank you for joining us. What else do we have to get ready? How about some Singer's Saving Grace? Soothing throat spray. That will get us going. This I don't need anymore for the podcast stuff. It goes away. What do I want to put on the front screen? Socrative is what we'll put on the front screen. Away with you, OneNote, as you sit there and spin and flail. Let's get rid of, make some more room on the screen. That's nice. We got about 6 minutes before we get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Get a warm beverage. Have a seat. Pull up a pillow and fall asleep. No, don't fall asleep. I'll fall asleep. Oh, it's the first study group since the time change. I may be the one falling asleep. But this may be my last time change. Here in our headquarters, here in Tallahassee, Florida, the legislature has chosen to always be on daylight saving time. So now we will see. It has to be, I think, there's some type of federal approval that has to take place. But this may be the last time I have to change my clock, which means it kind of messes up my scheduling for this, though. It doesn't really mess anything up. Normally, I do this on Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. All right. What if Florida is the only one that doesn't change the clock 6 months from now? I'm not going to make it 12 o'clock my time. I'm still going to make it 12 o'clock East Coast time. But that means I think it's at 11 my time, isn't it? Because we fall forward. Yeah. So something like that. So I'll have to get up earlier. Not really. I have to get up to make it 11 o'clock. Oh, it's not quite like that. This morning, I've already edited 2 new Network Plus videos. I did some administration on the back end. I signed a contract. There's already stuff going on. This is the end of my day in many ways. We got 4 minutes left. Do I have everything ready to go? We're recording. Are the Cylons going? They are. By my command. I've got recording going here. There's obviously, we're live on YouTube, and we're live at professormesser.com/live, which is where the chat room is, where people have had coffee. Is it going to be dark in the early morning forever? Well, yeah, but I'm in Florida. We don't get up early, and we want the light to be as long as possible at the end of the day. That's what that's about. How's that going to mess up people coming to Disney World? They're going to hit a time change. They might actually will they be in better shape? I mean, if the Magic Kingdom opens at 8, that would really be 9 East Coast time. Okay. So maybe that would be how it works. Let's see. Is somebody already trying to call me in the middle of, yes, they were. So I've already got things on the phone. Let's check, make sure Nest is working. So we might change things on the fly. We're powered here. I think we're in pretty good shape. I think we've got everything we need to at least be live and do things. So that's good. What else? I think that's it. I think we're good. Why is my LastPass complaining? Probably because I lost connection somewhere. We've got this, we got that. All right. Chat is up. I didn't check the tweeter to see if the tweets went out, but I'm guessing perhaps by now it did. Let's see if people are actually attending the live stream. That would be a good way to do it. Are people seeing me? It's such a simple question. I need to put my analytics up so I can see that. Yes, you're here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in just a moment. What do I need up? I don't need YouTube. I need my presentation. Right there. Very good. Well, you see me, but what about other people? We need this over here. I need my hot beverage on standby. Oh, you can see I got the TriCaster on an arm now. So now I can actually see what's going on while I'm doing a live stream. In fact, I could almost put this down closer, couldn't I? I really can't. It's hanging off the edge of the desk way over there. What else is, we got everything ready to go here. Got the new course notes. Those are set. What else? We're good. We got 1 minute and 10 seconds. Which is just about right. I've got it on the low latency on the YouTube, so it should be pretty interactive. We've got plenty of questions, too. I think almost everything now is going to be in 10007, but there's so much the same. We'll talk about that in a moment, because there has been that change since the last study group, since 14 days ago. So we'll talk all about the new version of the Network Plus. What do you mean there isn't a live banner on my homepage? There isn't? What happened to it? Where did it go? You're right. Look at that. Let's fix it, everybody, real quick. I probably put the wrong date and time. It's probably been wanting to tell you all about this all week, and it hasn't even been there. I need a bookmark. I need this bookmark. I need that bookmark right there. We'll put that up, and then we'll get started. I know I'm technically supposed to start in 10 seconds, but what are you going to do? Let's change our promo bar so that people know that this is indeed live. Today is the 14th. Yep, that's what happened. didn't have the date right. So we're going to change some of this around, 12th through the 14th. So we'll pretend that it was there. We're going to reset a cookie and save those changes and check the website. Look at what we do on the fly. And if we check Professor Messer, there it is. Okay. Now it's there. Why, thank you, chat room. Would not be able to do this without you. So true. Steve passed his A+ yesterday. Congratulations, Steve. We are still using Socrative. All the details are at professormesser.com/live. Find everything there. Let's get started, everybody. We should do a study group. It'll be great. You'll love it. Hang on. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2018 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group, coming to you live from the Messer Studios headquarters in Tallahassee, Florida. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you're here live, we'll be able to do some interactive Q&A. If you're watching this on the replay, you won't be able to do the interactive Q&A, but you can still follow along with the questions and answers and see how you do compared to how we're going to do right now. We got a lot to talk about this week. There's been a lot of changes with the Network Plus in the last month or so since we had last met. So we should talk all about what's going on there. I would not be able to do this study group without your help. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. There is, of course, ways to follow what we're doing here at professormesser.com/Twitter. The new Intent 007 Network Plus videos are going up as we speak. I edited 2 new videos this morning, so make sure you're following me on YouTube so you see immediately when those are posted at professormesser.com/YouTube. Smash that button, I think the kids say, so do that. Professormesser.com/vouchers gets you a 10% discount when you're ready to take your CompTIA exam, so don't forget about the voucher discount. Don't pay full price for the vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers and get that discount. Of course, I have my Intent 006 course all done, and many people are still going to take the Intent 006 exam. It doesn't go away until the end of August. So if you're one of those people, and believe me, people will be taking that exam all the way up until the last day it's available. And right now, most of the content out there is for Intent 006. This is a really good example of that. All of my videos are available online for you to watch every minute of every video. Somebody sent me an email today and said, where do I register? You don't. You just watch them. They're just there. I'm not doing email gathering, and I'm not hitting you with emails every day about this. I just make the videos for free and put them out there so you can watch all of them. So make sure you do that. There is high definition videos you can also purchase for download. If you like the ones online, you might want to take them with you when you're not online. Find all of those at professormesser.com/getnetplus. There's also some Intent 006 questions on the website, A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus for you for free, 20 questions in a section. So you take 20 question blocks. And I think I've got about 100 Network Plus ones out there. You can find them at professormesser.com/pop-quiz. There is also a podcast of this, an audio version. Many of you come to the website and you watch the video replay, which is great. Please do. But some of you like to have it in a podcast form, audio only. Some of the things we do are visual, so you lose a little bit there. But I think most of it gets through okay. And a lot of people are downloading it, so you must really like it. You can find my A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus Study Group podcasts at professormesser.com/podcasts with the S on the end. Leave on the S for savings. There's all those podcasts, all the RSS feeds are there. So if you wanted to put it into your own podcast gathering app that automatically downloaded it whenever it was available, it's right there on that page, professormesser.com/podcast. So I usually get them up, usually the afternoon that we do them, sometimes the next morning. It depends on what's going on in my world. So be patient with me. And if you're having any problems with it, just let me know. There's always a way to contact me from the top of the website. So let's talk about what's changed with Network Plus. Since we last met a month ago, a new version of the exam has come out. We were expecting this, of course. We speculated that perhaps on the 1st of March, CompTIA would be introducing a brand new Network Plus exam. And they did. A new exam was made available on March the 1st, the Intent 007. We think that exam will be available for about 3 years. So many people are downloading those exam objectives. They're looking at them. I'll give you my opinion of those exam objectives in just a moment. If you're studying or have been studying for the Intent 006, you may not want to shift over to the N10007. The N10006 exam is still available until August the 31st. So if you've already been studying, you're going through all the materials, somebody wrote me this week and said, I've just finished my N10006 book, and now the 7 is out. I said, that's okay. You can still take the 006 exam. Those numbers, by the way, the N10006 and the N10007, those are the exam numbers. Those are not the certification names. Whether you take the N10006 and pass it, or you take the N10007 and pass it, you earn exactly the same Network Plus certification. There's no difference in the certification. So take the exam that fits best with what you're doing, with your plans on when you plan on taking the exam. And that's why you'll notice if you email me and say, I just bought your course notes, are these going to work for me? My question back to you will be, what version of the exam do you plan on taking? So make sure you make that decision first, and then all of your study materials should match those exam objectives if you want to have the best possible chance at passing this exam. Now, one thing that's important, especially from the perspective of the exam objectives, is you really have to look at the differences. What has changed between the 006 and the 007? If you look at the CompTIA website, it sounds like it's a brand new exam with all new features and all new things, and actually not that different. It's really not much of a difference between the N10006 and 007. Maybe in the after show, I'll bring up my set of exam objectives where I highlight what has changed, what's the same, what is new, and you'll be able to get a feel for all of those things. And what you'll find is most of the exam is the same. So normally I'll tell people, don't shift over in midstream and take the 007. And some people have this feeling like they really should be taking the latest exam, and they do it anyway. With something like the Security Plus, you would not have wanted to do that, because when they made a change recently to that exam, it was really different. But for networking, it's interesting because with computers and security, hardware, those things change dramatically. Operating systems we get a new operating system every couple of years from Microsoft. Those things are changing all the time. Network technologies don't necessarily have dramatic changes like that happening to them. The same Ethernet that we're running today, very similar to the Ethernet we ran 25 years ago. Not much difference between the two. The speeds are faster. We've got some fiber. Yes, there are other topologies. There are differences, of course. And on this newer exam, CompTIA did include some updated content. So there are new things in the N10007 you should absolutely be aware of if you plan on taking that exam. But that's my opinion. Have a look at both of those exam objectives and look. In the chat room, there was a comment made that, well, isn't it better to take the older test and then maintain the CEUs, because it shows, interestingly enough, a broader range of experience? And it's not a bad point, because you're learning everything from now 3 years ago up to close to where we are modern times, but the continuing education that you're going to do will include, obviously, the things that are latest on the exam. So there is a good argument to take the previous exam, because you'll learn things that perhaps aren't on the newer exam, and you'll be able to support those older technologies that are absolutely still running in our data centers. So not a bad opinion, not a bad idea with considering that way. Either way, you can't lose. You'll get your Network Plus certification, which I think is a foundational certification for IT. Everybody should know everything there is to know about the network. It just makes everything you do with technology so much easier. Let's talk about Q&A today. We're going to do a lot of Q&A, and I'm using this online service where we can all answer the questions together. It's great. You'll love it. It's called Socrative. Socrative.com. You go to professormesser.com/QA. It will automatically take you there. So pop open a new browser window, professormesser.com/QA, and poof, you're there, and there's a question already waiting for you. I'll show you that question in a moment. There are apps that you can get for your mobile device as well. These are Socrative student apps. Socrative also has a teacher app. That's the one for me. The Socrative student app is the one for you, and you can download that Socrative student app from your favorite app store thing and load it up. It's going to ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it right, or you won't see any questions there. You'll be in a room all by yourself. We don't want that. If you're watching this on the replay, you can't do any of this. You have to be here live to be able to answer the questions live with Socrative. So always check our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll know exactly when the live event is going to be, and you can join us because it's a lot of fun. So here is, if you've done all of that right, you're in the Socrative room, there will be a question waiting for you, and this is the question. It's actually a question from last month. So this is our rewind. We're going to see how well you remember what we went over last month. What standard would best describe 10 gigabit Ethernet over Category 6 twisted pair cabling? Which one of these? And I have a list, multiple choice, thankfully, for us. The options are 10 base T, 10 G base T, 10 G base TX, 1000 base T, 10 G base TR, and 1000 base TX. Which of those standards would best describe 10 gigabit Ethernet over Category 6 twisted pair cabling? And we can see interactively, I get to see as you're answering these questions, 52% of people have said A, 10G base T, 20% have said 10G base TX, and then we've got 16%, almost a tie there, for 1000 base T, 9% for 1000 base TX, and 3% said 10G base TR. So those are your options. Maybe that's something. The whole point of this, by the way, is to see if you can get into Socrative, see if you can see the questions that are here, see if you can answer them, get a feel for this. And if you were here last month, this might be a gimme. You might have already known about what this one is. But it sounds like some of you may be new, because we only have the top answer is 53%, just barely a majority here that are watching this live. Let's talk about 10 gig copper then, because here's what we need to learn about 10 gig. The big standard that we use when we talk about 10 gig over copper is 10G base T. This is not something we commonly have in our homes. This is something that's on servers in a data center. Although I will tell you, I did just get a brand new computer that you're seeing the Socrative on. It's the one right in front of me, has a 10 gig built into the system. I have nothing else that's running in 10 gig in the studio, but now I need that. Now I have to have 10 gig, and I'm going to use 10G base T as the standard to be able to do that. It requires Category 6 at a minimum to be able to do this. In fact, the plain Category 6 will support 10G base T over 55 meters, up to 55 meters. It sort of maxes out at that distance. If you want to go longer, normally we think of Ethernet standards as going 100 meters. There is an augmented form of Cat 6 called Cat 6A. A little bit different. Cat 5 had an enhanced version, which is Cat 5E. With Cat 6, it's augmented, Cat 6A. Why did we change it? Because it was difficult to remember. That's why. So that you would have it as a question on your exam, that it is Cat 6A. In fact, I've seen some books write Cat 6E as if it was like Cat 5. We get mixed up ourselves. So there is no Cat 6E. It's Cat 6A, and that will support 100 meters. I do have Cat 6 here in the studio between a couple of connections because I was thinking ahead, maybe. We'll see. Not all of them, because Cat 6 is a little bit more difficult to work with. I like working with Cat 5 a little bit better. But Cat 6, obviously, if I can go 10 gig over copper, that might be worth putting it in. So if we look at our answers, which are not there, let's picture me. There we go. If we look at our answers, you can see 10G base T, number A, letter A, first A was the correct answer. 56% of you did get that one right. There's no such thing as 10G base TX, so that's not it. There is 1000 base T and 1000 base TX are real things, but they're for 1 gig, not 10 gig. And 10G base TR, nope, not the standard we're looking for. 10G base T is the standard that we're looking for. Hopefully, you were able to get in, answer the question, and if you got it right or wrong, it's good if you got it right. If you got it wrong, now you know. You actually learned something today. So let's do more questions regarding this. I've got a number of questions that we're going to go through. Before I do this, really quick, but when you sit down to take your CompTIA exam, you go into the exam room, and the first set of questions that you're going to get are what CompTIA calls performance-based questions. These are not multiple choice. With a lot of these exams, we expect multiple choice. Pick A, B, C, or D. I always stick an E in there as well because it's just how I do things. So you have to choose multiple choice on these exams, but CompTIA has mixed it up a little bit. The first set of questions, a handful of them, there might be 3, there might be 6, there might be more, But of the 90 questions that you could possibly get on your Network Plus exam, the first set of them are going to be these performance-based questions. These might be fill in the blank. They might be having to choose between multiple or matching between multiple devices. It might be putting things in particular order. They might put you in a command prompt and tell you perform this function at the command line and give you nothing else. So you really have to know your stuff with these performance-based questions. I will sometimes tell people to skip those at the beginning because I'm awful on exams. I'm very anxious when I go into an exam. I don't know what I'm doing for the first 10 minutes. So I tell people skip over those, do all the multiple choice, because I think the multiple choice might remind you of things that might help you with the performance-based. And with CompTIA, you can jump around the exam wherever you'd like. So you can jump past all of those, do all the multiple choice, and then come back. Just don't forget about them. Remember your timer that is running. You have 90 minutes, so don't forget about that. The point of saying this is that I have a performance-based question for you as our first question. So get ready to answer this one. And this one is a fill in the blank. I have an A, B, C, and D for you. For the folks that are on the podcast, this isn't going to help very much because this is more of a visual question where I have, oh, you know what? I don't have it in my Socrative. So you're going to have to do this one. You have to think about this one yourself. Name these connectors. I put 4 connectors up here. So name these connectors. You're going to have to figure out A, B, C, and D. The connectors that I have here are just pictures of connectors on the screen. I'm not going to really describe much of them. One is blue, one is red, one is black, one is yellow. For the folks on the podcast, it's difficult to describe because I may give away what these connectors are. So although we can't answer it on Socrative because I'm apparently incapable of properly configuring Socrative in a way to do this, you can name them in your mind. This A, B, C, and D. What connector is A? What connector is B? What connector is C? And what connector is D? Now I'm looking for the connector name. I'm not looking for the name of the topology or Ethernet standard or type of media. Looking for connector name. Now, as we go through these questions today, it's also important you don't answer these in the chat room. Normally, you go to professormesser.com/QA. We're not going to do that because apparently I didn't put those connectors in there right. One of the things, I think this is the one from last month though, isn't it? Maybe that's why, is the connectors that are there. I'm going to have to pull up last month's to be able to do it. So we have 2 performance-based questions today. For those of you that are dying for performance-based questions, you got 2 of them. So congratulations. That's the one where you do this. It's really trying to get it all down to a science, isn't it? For the live stream. Hopefully you know what these 4 are. I like that we at least got this one again. I'm going to now change my configuration on my screen so that, well, this isn't going to work for you either, so that I have the answer to this one up. I'm going to pull up last month so we can go through it. I think connectors are pretty important. You'll run into these connectors all the time. You'll be in the back of a router, and there'll be a bunch of connectors on the back of them. And you'll wonder, what in the world am I looking at? What type of connector is that? And that can really come in handy if you already know offhand, oh, I know what that connector is. That might be able to help you quite a bit in working through these. So let's see how you did with these connectors. There we go. How's that for working on the fly? So the first connector set that we have here are BNC connectors. This is the one that is the connector locks in. You push it in, you twist it, and now it's locked through the connection for a BNC. You know it's not coming out if you're plugging in a BNC. You often see BNC on T3 and E3 connections. So if you're working in a WAN connection, you go back into the data center, you see all these CSU, DSUs, and you've got this coax coming out of the wall and plugging into your router, and it's plugging in this BNC connector, probably a T3, one of those others. The next one over is an LC connector. This is a fiber connector. You can see it's going into the transceivers that happen to be on this particular device. And they're plugged in through this LC connection that happens to be there. Very popular type of fiber connector, by the way. Maybe it's one that you've used before as well. You should probably be familiar with the third connection, which is F. It's an F connector. That's just it, F, the letter F. That's all it is. This is the connector we use for cable television, but perhaps more importantly for us, it's the connector that we use for our networks that are connected to cable television. So you're probably plugging those in quite a bit. Yeah, somebody in the chat room going, yeah, the BNC also for commercial video. It certainly is. I have SDI connections. Everything that you see in the studio is connected. All the videos connected with coax. Crazy. And it's got BNC connectors for the standard SDI that I use here. Absolutely very useful because I know it's not going to be disconnected. Last connector, FC connector, another fiber connector, and one you still need to know about. So that one comes in handy too, to be able to work through those. Hopefully you recognize some of those connectors and you did pretty well with it. So I think those are things you absolutely need to know for the Network Plus exam. That's a good example of working through a performance-based question where you're just given a blank line and working through those pieces of it. This is something we absolutely need to know for our Network Plus exam. So hopefully that's something that has helped you too. Now, bonus for everybody is another performance-based question. How you like that for these? To be able to work through these. Let's go very quickly. Here we go. I have the question ready to go now. Here's another performance-based question. And I don't think I have, I think this one is also a fill in the blank. So I've got these listed on the screen and I'm looking now, we're going to do IP addresses. What class is associated with these IP addresses? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 addresses here. And I want the class associated with these IP addresses. The first IP address, 192.168.77.254. The second IP address, 126.156.223.1. The third IP address is 222.222.222.222. Is that a real address? It is. Another address, 165.245.77.30. We've got 120.244.16.254. And we've got 200.1.77.150. And these IP addresses are also available on Socrative. So you can go to professormesser.com/QA and you can just put in whatever they happen to be. It's a fill in the blank. So if you think they're all class A, you'd say AA. Boom, we got it. Just remember what you put because you don't have a way to go through it after you're done. That's the sneaky part, is we don't have a way to reference back to it after we're done. So make sure you have a look at those when you're going through all of this. Comes in handy to know all of those things as well. There's a question also on that last question. I'm going to go back because there was a question in the chat room about this. The type of transceiver that's being used here is an SFP, a small form factor pluggable. It's not a GBIC. A GBIC's a little bigger. In fact, I might, while you are answering the question about the classes, I'm going to pull up a picture so you can see the differences between all of those, the different transceivers. I think I've got one here. I've got it from my course notes. How handy is that to have that there? I've got it. Here we go. So here they are. There's a GBIC. GBIC's kind of large. The SFP is what was in that particular picture. And there's also a quad SFP that's a little bit bigger, not much bigger. So these are modules that can go into a networking device. This is the end that connects to the inside of the switch or router. And the outside's where usually fiber, but you can also find copper in those as well. Those are not Cisco devices. They're more industry standard devices with all of those. So make sure you go through all of those pieces and understand what all of those are. Okay, back to our IP class question. You've had enough time now to go through these IP addresses and figure out the details. Now, let's see what the answers are for all of these. What class is associated with these IP addresses? 192.168.77.254 is a class C. The next one on our list was a 126.156.223.1. That is a class A. The next one on our list, 222.222.222.222. Why did I make this one so difficult to say? That one's a class B. So a little bit of everything so far. 165.245.77.30, which happens to be an IP address I used to manage. So that is a class B. I used to manage that class B. So I sneak it in there. I snuck it in there. Just like that. 120.244.16.254 is a Class A, and then 200.1.77.150 is a Class C. Hopefully, you were able to get those classes right and be able to work with those to know what's there. There is a video on my website that has all of those available for you to look at. And you probably also have, I'm going to show something also on my screen. So to have that there, all of those pieces. Did I have the 222 wrong? Probably. Probably because I was typing too fast and probably mixed them up. But it's okay. We can fix all of this to have this here. 222's Class C. Let's see how this works. It is a Class C. Look at that. Of course it's a Class C. Well, I've got it on the screen right there. How could you not know a 222 is Class C? Fixed everybody up. In fact, if you go to just I wrote this down already in my course notes. There is the IPv4 class. Those are the private addresses. Let me see if I can find the actual class address for this one in my course notes. It might be something you can use later on. Not class of service, not classful breakdowns, but the class view in my course notes. Classful subnetting. There it is. 222. So everything that between 192 and 223 is certainly a Class C. Oh, there won't be video editing on this. We don't cut out the mistakes. I live with my mistakes. I'm fine with that. I make mistakes all the time. In fact, I rely on you to tell me when something is snuck in like that so that we can all learn from that. Helps a lot. Let's do another question, though. That was, by the way, that was our 2 performance-based questions of the day. You got to love that. So hopefully that has helped you as well. If you don't know these classes, make sure you go know them. Make sure you go know them. That's exactly what you should do. You should go to either my video, find a list on Wikipedia, go through that list, know what those class-based particular values are. One of the things that's important with these classes is that we don't really use classes anymore as a way to automatically find a subnet mask, but we use them to determine where do we start when we begin subnetting an IPv4 address. So that's why we still talk about classes, even though technically our networks are no longer class-based. I've got another question for you, and here it is. Which of these would be the best way to increase the available bandwidth between 2 switches? And I have some options for you. So you've got 2 switches. You want to increase bandwidth. How do you do it? Would you, A, enable STP? Would you, B, configure a trunk port? Would you, C, set up lag? Would you, D, enable layer 3 switching? Would you, E, enable 802.1x? Which of these would be the best way to increase the available bandwidth between 2 switches? If you got 2 switches, you want to increase the bandwidth. I do. I would like to do this. I should use this, whatever this is. Hopefully you know the answer. If you do know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and be able to do that too. I know this one came from last month too, but I had some questions about this. So we're going to do this one and get this one here. And then we'll go some new ones. Got some new stuff available for you for this one. There is a number of things that you need to know about setting up switches. And there is a lot of different ways to configure a switch. In fact, on the N10007 exam, there's an entire video that talks about configuring an interface on a switch and getting it there. So I think the CompTIA is really doing a good job of thinking how we would do this and work through this. So hopefully, again, no answering in the chat room, please. One of the things that we should absolutely think about is how we would do this configuration. And I know that a lot of the Network Plus exam is not hands-on, but if you have an opportunity to connect to a switch, to do some configurations of an interface, can only help you on the exam. So that might help you as well. This is another one of those that is one that talks about helping you on the exam and getting this here. One of the things that whenever I start looking at these questions, and this came up also last month too, is that a number of these terms are not spelled out for you. And it was a question I got this month where somebody sent me an email and said, do I really have to know all these acronyms? The Network Plus exam is pretty acronym heavy. There are tons, and that's because in networking, tons of acronyms. We love acronyms in networking. We do tons of acronyming. Not sure that's a word. But you'll notice in this question, some of those acronyms show up. And some of you in the chat room are saying, I'm not seeing the thing I would expect. But the thing you would expect may actually be there because it may be using the acronym. So make sure you know those as you go through. Yeah, I think probably more than the A+, isn't it? There's probably more here. Let's see how we did with the answers. Let's see how everybody did. How do we do? We've got 35% said set up lag, almost a tie for first, configure trunk port. And then we've got 18% said enable layer 3 switching, 11% said enable STP, and 2% said enable 802.1x. So which one would it be? We're sort of tied for first. We didn't get a majority. So now we have to figure out which one was it really between these two. Is it set up lag or is it configure trunk port? It's got to be one of those, right? Let's talk about what this is. The one we're most interested in, the one that is the answer on this one, is link aggregation or port bonding. Or as someone in the chat room mentioned, and there are other companies call this other things. In the Cisco world, this is called Ether channel. So you never know, depending on what switch manufacturer you're using, what they will call it. The industry term for this is link aggregation. And very commonly, we will yell at other people, hey, did you set up that lag? Do we have a lag? They're not talking about a delay. They're talking about the link aggregation. And where you can connect multiple interfaces together. There's the two switches where 1 gigabit between the two wasn't enough. So they put 4 gigabit connections up, and they told the switch, please configure this and use it as if it is one big fat connection. And the switch does. It's like magic. There is a management protocol associated with this called LACP, Link Aggregation Control Protocol. Some people will call the lag an LACP connection. Not technically correct, but we know what they're saying because you really don't use LACP in any other way. This control protocol is not necessary to set up link aggregation. You can simply set up a static connection and connect them together and not use any type of control protocol because you administratively configured it yourself. The control protocol is nice because if one of those connections is disconnected or there's other connections added to it, it does things automatically behind the scenes. There's some other capabilities to LACP that make it really nice, but not all devices that support lag also support LACP. See where I'm going with that? So sometimes you don't have the choice. You must perform a lag without configuring LACP on that particular interface. So those of you that answered C, set up lags, 36% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, why wouldn't it be a trunk port, configuring a trunk port? Well, a trunk port actually is one that would share bandwidth between VLANs. In some ways, a trunk port would slow down the things because now we don't have separate connections for every VLAN. We're running all VLANs tunneled through a trunk connection, which is why it would not be the right connection. And I just put on the website with the N10007 for those. All of these would be, I just did one on VLANs. I think it's on network segmentation. So the network segmentation video goes into detail about VLANs and how they're set up and why we have them and those things as well. In the enabling STP, the spanning tree protocol, that's something that's used to prevent loops. I guess technically that would help bandwidth utilization. That would help you from crashing the network, from completely bringing it to its knees. Enabling layer 3 switching enables routing, but does nothing for bandwidth between switches. And someone in the chat room aptly put, enabling 802.1x, answer E, probably the real answer. People can't log in, not going to be using any of that bandwidth. We've effectively increased the available bandwidth by keeping people off the network. Oh, I like the way you think. That's probably a good way to do it. I think I might have a new question for you finally. You can tell me if it's one from last week or not. Here's the next question. Which of these would be the best use of SHA-2? Which of these would be the best use of SHA-2? Hopefully this is one where you're familiar with what the heck SHA-2 is. That would help initially. But what might also help is that this one is a multiple choice. So you can get rid of some of the answers that may not be something you know. So would the answer be A, confirm the contents of a downloaded file? Would it be B, protect the contents of an email message? Would it be C, validate the sender of a message? Would it be D, encrypt data across an IPsec tunnel? Or would it be E, disguise data inside of a graphics file? which of these would be the best use of SHA-2? Now, let me look through these myself. Which one would it be? If you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA. I'm going to mull these over as well. Some folks in the chat room saying, oh, if you want to try your hand at configuring a switch, use Cisco's Packet Tracer program, which is a great program to use, by the way. Packet Tracer is so nice to use. You do have to know Cisco. There's a little bit of a learning curve. There's a lot of a learning curve with using Packet Tracer, but it doesn't require any special licensing. You don't have to have any Cisco code. There's no Linux involved. You just load it in a Windows machine and you're up and running. It is a pretty nice program to use for being able to very quickly build out a network and use it. Other people are mentioning GNS3, which is, I don't know if it's open source, but it's certainly one that's available for free. GNS3 requires you, however, to have true iOS code available. And not everybody has that. So you have to properly license the Cisco code. So if you already have a Cisco switch and you already have a Cisco router, you're probably licensed for that. You can run GNS3. But a lot of us don't have equipment. That's the whole reason we're using these programs. So make sure that you go through all of this and know what exactly this might be. For this particular question, there is one answer. There is not really another way to do it. Let me look through this. There's partly, sort of, could be another possible half answer, but the question is very specific in what it's looking for. The question is asking which of these would be the best use of SHA-2, which, by the way, is very common to see on the exam in the way they ask these questions. By the way, the Cisco Packet Tracer is free for you to download and use. You don't have to be someone who's gone to Cisco training. It used to be that way in the past. Over the last year, they changed licensing. You only now need to register on Cisco's site, and they will let you use it for free, which is really great. And it's a great little program for those pieces, able to have that there. Let's see how we did with this one. Which of these would be the best use of SHA-2? How do we do? Let's find out. 53% of you said encrypt data across an IPsec tunnel, which sounds like a good idea to me. Why wouldn't I want data encrypted across an IPsec tunnel? But 25% said confirm the contents of a downloaded file. So we've got almost 75% in the first two questions, first two answers there. 11% said validate the sender of a message, and then single digits for protecting the contents of an email message and disguising data within a graphics file. So SHA-2, what would we do with SHA-2? SHA-2 is the secure hash algorithm. That's the H in SHA, deals with hashing. And that probably is the biggest clue for you in this particular question, because hashing is something that has some very specific uses, and it has some very specific things it does not do. So that might help you as you're looking through these answers. There are a number of different SHA flavors. By the way, this was created by the National Security Agency in the United States, for better or worse. It is what they call a FIPS standard, the Federal Information Processing Standard. FIPS standard, I guess FIPS compliant. FIPS standard's redundant, isn't it? We started with SHA-1. That's why there's a SHA-2, by the way, is we started with the SHA-1. We used it everywhere. But unfortunately, in 2005, we found collision attacks where there could be multiple types of text that ended up with the same hash, which is bad. You don't want that. So we came up with a new version of SHA because it was so good. Let's just tweak it a little bit and get SHA-2 out of it. And this is the one that pretty much everybody prefers to use if they're going to use SHA, because we haven't found any collision attacks associated with this. Pretty big digest too, 512 bits, which is pretty nice. And the U.S. government says no more SHA-1 for us. We're going to go SHA-2 from here on out. So when we're talking about hashing, a hash is not encryption. Encrypting is not hashing. So that's an important consideration when we go through these particular answers that we have. Which of these would be the best use of SHA-2? Confirming well, let's look. Encrypting data across an IPsec tunnel. 54% of you said that one. But as I just mentioned, hashing is not encryption. In fact, the hashing is a one-way transaction. So we can take data and we can create a hash of that information, which is really a message digest. It's not a representation of the data, and there's no way to get the data back from the hash. That's not what a hash does. So in that particular case, encrypting data has nothing to do with hashing. So when we look at the things where we're encrypting or protecting data or creating confidentiality, that's more encryption. Hashing is not encryption. So it would not be encrypting data across an IPsec tunnel. Unfortunately, the 55% of us did not get that one right. Protecting the contents of an email message, as I said, protecting or encrypting, not what hash does. So 8% not getting that one correct either. Now, there is that's sort of the half answer, by the way. I'll take half credit if you did choose B, because there is some type of quote unquote protection that could come from using a hash. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Validating the sender of a message, inherently a hash does not do that. Although if you're familiar with digital signatures, which are effectively encrypting a hash with a private key, that's something that might validate the sender of a message. But I didn't say anything in the question about digital signatures or encryption. I just said SHA-2. So it would not be something that would validate the sender of a message. And disguising data inside of a graphics file, that type of obfuscation, is one that does not use hashing. Again, that would probably be being able to take the data and perhaps encrypt it and put it as part of the graphics file, or simply put the data unencrypted as part of the graphics file as well. So you've got a couple of options for doing that with a graphics file, but that's not SHA-2 that you would be doing that with. That's has nothing to do with hashing, in fact, to be able to have that there. The answer here is confirming the contents of a downloaded file. In fact, we do this all the time. When you're downloading a file, there might be a graphics file. There might be I see this a lot with Linux downloads. You're downloading a Linux distribution. They'll give you the Linux download, and then they'll give you a number of hashes that you can use to test against once you've downloaded it, so that you can know which one it happens to be. You can confirm, I got this file, I ran exactly the same hash as you did, and it matches what's on the website. I must have downloaded the file properly. I don't have any corruption. It's exactly the same file that it was on that web server when I got those pieces. So it comes in handy to have that capability. So if you answered A, confirm the contents of a downloaded file, that is the best use of SHA-2 in the list of things that are here. Protecting the contents of an email message is a little sketchy there, because it's not really protecting anything. You could validate the contents of an email message the same way that you could validate the contents of a downloaded file using SHA-2. But protecting the contents, SHA-2 doesn't really protect anything. You would have to do that to be able to have those that capability. You'd have to add some type of encryption to be able to protect that, have that capability. There's also a lot of things you need to remember about hashing and encryption on the exam. So make sure you become very familiar with those. So in this particular case, A was our right answer. 25% of you did answer that one right. I try to get half of you getting it right. I failed you. I'm so sorry. But we'll do better on the next one, I'm sure, to be able to have that there. Tons of things you need to know on the exam, by the way. And the N10007 just adds to the list. They didn't take out very much. And that's why I created these course notes. People are going through my 100 or so videos and saying, there's a lot here on these notes. And so I created these. This is the physical version of the course notes that I'm holding. It's an actual book. It's got a nice perfect bound spine. It's a very nice high quality book. It's full color. So it's one where if you're looking through all the different things you need to know, it's kind of hard to see with the glare, but that's the way that particular book looks. But there's a digital version as well. If you're somebody like me, just like to carry out all the digital stuff, that comes in handy. It has everything inside of it. I think I've got the digital version. Well, we've already looked at it. Already gone through the digital version on the screen. We were looking at class information because apparently I'm incapable of doing the class information properly. But thankfully, we have the course notes here to be able to go through it. Big 65 pages for the N10007. Is that really what it is? I'll go through all this 66 pages. So 66 pages for the N10007. There's all the port numbers and Ethernet frame types and all of the VLAN and 802.1q trunking and all of those different types. It's all here. So all of this information's in the course notes. This is not supposed to replace the videos. It's not supposed to replace a good book. And in fact, you could take your own notes from the videos and do this yourself. But a lot of you don't have time to do that. And this is a great way to keep the site going as well. A lot of people said, we want to contribute. We want to help keep the site going. This is absolutely a great way to do it. Every single penny of this goes back to keeping the site going. It is fantastic, your support of what we're doing here by using these tools that we make available to you, not just the free videos, but also purchasing these if you're able to. I have both an N10006 version of the course notes and an N10007. You can find out more about the N10007 at professormesser.com/MPCN7. That's the Network Plus Course Notes 7. That's what that stands for. And there's links at the top of the page. The pull-down menu for the Network Plus has links back to the course notes as well. Hopefully it's something that can help you too and pass this exam. You go through the book, you read all this. It's a nice cram before you walk in the room to be able to get all the little details just right. And I want to thank you for those of you on the chat room you already mentioned and saying, oh, well, I've already used this. I already got it. I've used it. I purchased the notes. It's really helping. Thank you so much for your support. Could not do it without you. And hopefully, thank you for your feedback on it too. Hopefully you're able to get the version that's specific to the exam you're going to take, and it'll help you pass the exam. Let's do another question, which also might help you pass the exam. Here's a long question. The question is, you've just started your computer. You find you have access to some local servers, but no access to the internet. Which of these is the most likely reason for this issue? Which of these would be the most likely reason for this issue? Fortunately, I have some options for you. So you can at least go through the list and say, well, it's this and it's not this, it's this, it's not this. The possible options are that A, QoS is configured on your network. B, your network adapter does not see a signal from the switch. C, spanning tree is currently active. D, your duplex setting is incorrect. Or is it E, the DHCP server is down? It's got to be one of those, right? Have a look through that list. You've just started your computer. You find you have access to some local servers, but no access to the internet. Which of these is the most likely reason for this issue? Not exactly unknown issue, by the way. So maybe it's one where you've gone through and had to deal with this problem before. Hopefully you haven't, but it will sneak up on you. You'll hit it eventually. You will find this problem eventually. So absolutely have a look through this. Maybe it's one you recognize. You can sort of see the question there through my head. Let me scroll down a little more. Yeah, we can kind of fit all the words on the screen there, can't we? We'll squeeze it in there. If you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. You can absolutely do that. Some folks on the chat room saying, I want to buy it. It's not possible in my country. Is there another way? There are other ways. A lot of people that are in other countries have problems with credit card transactions and that type of thing, which is very common. PayPal isn't supported in a number of countries. That's a problem. But also on my website, for all of my products, you could also purchase through Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. So you got a couple of options there, and it doesn't matter where you live. You can purchase using Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, which is really the benefit of those cryptocurrencies, I think. So feel free to use that capability as well. It might help you when you go through this. And being able to have that there. Yes, send gold. I think that's an excellent idea. Just send me a bar of gold and I will do that. Well, these days, sending Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash is a lot like sending gold. So that's one good way to do it. Let's see how we did, how we answered this one with starting our computer and running into this problem and what people think. And boy, did we rebound on this one. 76% of you say the DHCP server's down. Well, how's the DHCP server down? Because I'm already talking to some local servers. We'll talk about that. 10% said your network adapter does not see a signal from the switch. And then we have single digits for spanning tree is active, your duplex setting is incorrect, and QoS is configured on your network. Well, how can I argue with 78% of you that said it's DHCP? Well, actually, it is DHCP. It is the right answer. DHCP, we almost forget about DHCP. And having those there and all of those pieces. The DHCP it's so automatic, we don't even think about it sometimes. It's when DHCP doesn't work that becomes an issue. We're assigned an automatic IP address, which allows us to access resources that are on our local network. This is an API-IPA address, an automatic addressing, but it only gives you, the automatic private IP addressing only gives you local access. So there's where that local came from. You have access to some local servers, but no access to the internet because these addresses, which start with 169.254, do not allow you to route those out to the internet. or anywhere else for that matter. Your routers aren't going to route those. They are only for your local IP subnet. So hopefully that's something that is an option for you anyway to think about. If you're able to access local devices but not able to access the internet, this could be one of those possible problems. And one of the reasons you would be assigned an API-IPA address for IP version 4 is that you weren't able to get one automatically from a DHCP server, which is pretty bad. That's a bad situation. So make sure that you go through and know all of the things that could happen if your DHCP server goes away. That's a big one. And those problems that you're seeing are absolutely associated with not getting a legitimately routable address on your workstation. So 79% of you, absolutely correct. Well done with that. Some of you in the chat room also mentioning, going back to the course notes, that the problem's shipping. It's not a problem for me. I'll ship anywhere in the world, anywhere you want. So that's easy. I ship everywhere. Now, the shipping you'll have to pay for. And if you go outside the United States, shipping gets kind of expensive. So you may see an extra, I think it's an extra $9 to Canada and an extra $13, $13.50 elsewhere. It's a little expensive for shipping, but the option's there if you'd like it. Not a lot to do. Good job on the 79% of you, by the way, that got that one right. I've got another troubleshooting problem for you. I like these troubleshooting problems. So let's do another one. This problem says you're having problems accessing an IP address range on the internet, and you believe your firewall is blocking these addresses. Which OSI layer would be most associated with this particular problem? And the possible answers for you, obviously, are layers 1 through 7, which is every layer of the OSI model. So pick the OSI version, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, or layer 7. So the question again, you're having problems accessing an IP address range on the internet. You believe your firewall is blocking these addresses. Which OSI layer would be most associated with this particular problem? Oh, the OSI. I got a few text messages yesterday, some private messages in the chat room, which is always available 24/7 on ProfessorMesser.com, where somebody was in a class, they had homework. I don't help with homework, unfortunately. And unfortunately, the answer I had to tell them was, I don't help with homework. But their question was, here's something, and we have to choose the OSI layer for this. The OSI layer, people probably don't appreciate enough. We use it all the time in the world of networking. So I'm a veteran of the IT networking and security industry, where I would go to many data centers around the world and talk to IT networking and security professionals. And that's how we communicated. Well, where does this operate? That operates at layer 3. Where does that operate? That operates at layer 7. How does this work? Well, it talks through layer 4 because it's a reference point that everybody knows. It's a reference point that everybody can use. And it's really popular to be able to use that. Someone once sent me a note, in fact, that said, nobody uses that. What are you talking about? Why do we have to learn this? Nobody uses it. I thought I just used it like 3 times today on something else that was not related to any of this. We use it all the time. Make sure you get familiar with it. It's going to help you when you start doing things in your job. So let's have a look at how we answered this. The question again, you're having problems accessing an IP address range on the internet. You believe your firewall is blocking these addresses. Which OSI layer would be most associated with this particular problem? How do we do? Well, we've got a nice flow, a nice distribution chart here, don't we? Almost a perfect distribution. We've got 56% that have said layer 3. So I'm always shooting for us to get 50% on one of these answers, but is it the right answer? We've got 19% said layer 4. 9% said layer 7. It just dropped down to 9. 5% said layer 5. 2% said layer 6. 2% said layer 1. And the folks in the chat room are saying, I just guessed at it. I don't know what that happens to be. So our key words on this one, you're having problems accessing the internet, accessing an IP address range on the internet, and you believe a firewall is blocking the IP address range on these addresses. That is your biggest clue on this, is IP address. So when I'm talking about an OSI layer problem, where is it blocking this? And since we're only dealing with IP addresses, this could be a layer 7 firewall. It could be a firewall that's next-gen firewall that blocks things based on application. But this particular question said, We think it's being blocked by IP address. That's the clue. An IP address is layer 3. Whenever you talk about an IP address, we're talking about layer 3. Firewalls block by IP address. They can block by port number. And most of the time these days, firewalls block by application as well. So they'll be able to, for instance, allow Twitter, but block anybody from posting to Twitter. That's capable in today's types of firewalls. But the problem we're having here is a type of firewall rule that had nothing to do with port numbers, had nothing to do with applications, had everything to do with IP addresses. So internet protocols, whenever you hear routing, whenever you hear IP address, whenever you hear making a forwarding decision based on an IP address, it's always talking about layer 3. Also, whenever you do fragmentation across a network and you're having to cut the IP packet up into smaller pieces, that also happens at layer 3 because that has nothing to do with port numbers either. It has to do with IP and getting that IP information across the network. So the network layer would be the right answer for this one. We had layer 3 is the right answer. 57% of you said layer 3. That's absolutely correct. Now, if the question said you're having problems accessing a device on the internet through TCP port 80, and you believe the firewall is blocking these addresses, then the answer would be layer 4 because we're talking about a TCP or UDP port number. If I'd said we're able to view Twitter, but we're not able to post to Twitter, and we think the firewall's blocking it, that would be layer 7. So there's how we could take the question and change it around to be different depending on the OSI layer. So hopefully that's something you were able to feel out with that one and get an idea of what those options are. We're running late. I did short you a question this week. You may not like the next question though, but we're going to do it anyway. We'll get another question in. And it was not that the DHCP server was down. So sorry, it was not. That was not what the answer is. Here is the next question on our list. Get your pencils ready because I want to know what is binary 10000010 in decimal. And it's a fill in the blank question. How you like that? Boom. Now we have to be able to do some calculations. Fortunately, this one's I can do this one in my head, and that's saying something. So you should be at a point where you could do this one in your head. In fact, people are giving me an answer right away. Oh, I got it. The reason we talk about binary math on the Network Plus exam is that it becomes exceptionally helpful for IP subnetting, but it also becomes helpful when you start looking at protocol decodes and you're starting to see some of these bytes that are really just 8 ones and zeros, and each 1 and 0 means something. And you need to understand why they are using a binary representation of that, because when we set bits in an IP header, those are the types of bits that we're setting. And it becomes really, really helpful for subnetting. Really helpful for subnetting. So make sure you understand how to perform binary math, how to convert from decimal to binary, how to convert from binary to decimal. Now, on the N10006 exam, you also have to know how to do the same thing for octal and for hexadecimal. On the N10007, I don't think those are there. I'm going back through my notes, but I don't think it's there. You're not going to run into that on that exam. So that's something that might help you as well. So I'm getting a lot of answers in on this one almost immediately about what this would be in decimal. What is it in decimal? What is it? What is it? Some of you are giving me numbers it couldn't possibly be. I think you may be. I agree that hexadecimal and in some ways octal are very helpful to know, but I think they just wanted to add more other types of topics on the exam to do that. So maybe this decimal answer should jump right out at you. Let's get the answer on this one. Let's just go through the different pieces. A lot of you, I think, are giving me the right answer on this one. So I think I can calculate this one in my head anyway. One of the things that I tell you in my video where we do binary math is the way you do is you break this up into smaller pieces. So you would write out the entire binary amount of binary values here, 100, 000, 10. So you put them out, you don't know what they are in decimal. And then I also mentioned to you, the easiest way to do this is to write out a conversion chart right on top of these numbers. So you start, interestingly, on the right side. So the right side is here. You start with a 1 and you double it. So that's 2 and you double it. And it's 4, you double 4. That's 8, you double 8. That's 16. These are powers of 2. Double 16, 32, 64, 128, and so on. You can keep going as long as you'd like with this, but we only have 8 particular bits that we need to deal with here. Now that we have the numbers up, we only now need to see where is any place where there is a 1. We bring down that number. So we know there's a 1 here. Let's bring down the 128. There's a 0 under the 64, so that's a 0. A 0 under the 32, a 0. A 0 under the 16, all the way until we get to the 2. There's a 1 there, so we'll bring down the 2, and then we just add them all up. So 128 plus 2, that would be 130 decimal. You were close, but now you see the process, and it's exactly the same process every time. It makes it so you can do it very, very, very quickly. And as I mentioned, this is going to be exceptionally important for you when you start thinking about, how do I plan on doing IP subnetting for this exam? What process am I going to go through? And sometimes you'll run into quite a bit of binary math when you get into this subnetting piece. All of the questions that we go through in these study groups all come from the CompTIA exam objectives. I get a lot of questions every week about, what do I really need to know before going into the exam? What topics are most important that I need to know before going into the exam? And I know those people immediately have not downloaded the exam objectives, because the exam objectives tell you. They tell you everything you need to know. We're very lucky to have these for the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus exam and other CompTIA exams. Microsoft doesn't do this. Cisco doesn't do this. VMware doesn't do this. You're never going to see other places give you this amount of detail. This is a great checklist. Before you go into your exam, you should be able to go through this list and be able to see it. One of the things that's important on here is that you use this as a checklist. This should be the first thing you get. When you're ready to take a Network Plus exam, not even before that, when you're ready to study, before you even start, before you buy one book, before you watch one video, download the exam objectives from the CompTIA website. You can either Google up CompTIA exam objectives, or you can go to professormesser.com/objectives and get those. Get it. Tells you everything. And it's a great way to go through this list and be able to really break down what the differences are and what you need to know, and perhaps more importantly, what you don't need to know. People tell me all the time, I got a sample question online that asked me about this topic. And I'll say, well, that topic's not in the exam objectives. Is it useful to know those exam objectives outside the scope? Yes, but we're trying to pass an exam. So if you focus on these details, you're going to be able to see this. So you'll know everything there is to know. Make sure you get those objectives. So important to passing your exam. I do one of these study groups every month. This one was our March. Next month will be April the 11th, the second Wednesday of April. And if this is past the second Wednesday of April, you're watching this on a replay and you're wondering, when is the next one going to be? You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and have a look at what the calendar happens to be. There'll be a lot of detail for you to be able to look through all of those. It becomes useful to have this here and have those pieces of what's available. This is something you should absolutely do as well, to be able to see exactly what's there and what you should know about. Make sure you check in. I do an A+ study group on the first Wednesday of the month, the Network Plus the second Wednesday, and we do Security Plus on the third Wednesday. So maybe you want to stop by just to participate with the Q&A, be in the chat room, giving me some grief, which I'm fine with. Or you can actually learn something new as you're going through, which I think is kind of fun too, to be able to have all of those pieces there. Well, we've gone through an hour, can you believe it, of all of this. But there's always something to see and always something to do. Check out what we're doing by following us on professormesser.com/Twitter. You can, of course, and if you're into the N10007 content right now, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's what's going out right now at professormesser.com/YouTube. The Network Plus course notes at professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes, or Network Plus course notes 7, NPCN 7, to have that there. My thanks to GTS Learning. Before we finish, by the way, somebody in the chat room reminded me that we need to have a special code word of the month. I snuck it in there before the end. So if you need to earn continuing education credit on this, which means you already have an A+ Network Plus or Security Plus certification, and you'd like to earn a webinar CEU for this, you can go to the top or the bottom of my website where it says Contact Us. Click on that, give me your name, your email address, and give me put somewhere in that message, because it comes to me. You can put anything you'd like in the note that comes to me. But you make sure you put in there somewhere that our super secret special code word of the month is binary. Make sure you have that in there. And that now you've got that CEU challenge. Thank you, AJ, in the chat room. I missed it completely. There's plenty of Intent 007 videos coming out. I edited 2 more this morning. So there's always new videos constantly. I'm constantly creating, and constantly I spend a day shooting video and a day editing. So I try to get those out. There'll be more coming out constantly now. The course is written. So now I'm just sitting in front of the camera and blah, 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 and then editing. So it's all about me right now, getting through it. So stay on me for more videos. Absolutely do it. You don't want a blooper reel of that, I assure you, of me doing this. I didn't have a chance to show you the net labs, but a lot of people like the hands-on that are available at professormesser.com/netlabs. Make sure you have a look at those if it's something that might help you. And of course, I do one of these every month. Check the calendar, and you can follow us and enjoy some of this too. Stick around. We've got another hour of call in. You can ask me anything you'd like. Doesn't have to do with Network Plus. Open phone lines. It'll be great. And that'll be our after show. So this will end the official study group session. We'll slide into the after show. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Where's this button? There it is. In the chat room, what else did people say? There was more questions on here. People saying, yes, Microsoft is sharing objectives. Have you looked at Microsoft's objectives? Not even close to the same. Microsoft gives you a sentence of what you need to know. CompTIA gives you 3 pages of what you need to know for one section. So that's a big difference. And it irritates me so that these companies don't tell you what you need to know. Let's do some call in. I've got to set up the phone lines here. So let me shift some of this stuff. We're going to after show mode. Get some of this going. Where's that button? What do I press? What's going on? Let's start a show. Let's host that show. And let's start it. And then we'll give you the phone numbers in just a moment, because I need to do this and be able to have this here. Yes, Microsoft does say 70% of the content on these exams you should learn by experience, and so does CompTIA. In fact, the Network Plus exam, they already expect you to have networking experience when you take that certification. Let me call into this phone line. Is it going to make a noise? I don't have it potted up. Of course it's not.
Thank you for calling.
Oh, there we go. And now I have to type it in with my left hand and type this in and press a thing. And then it says,
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
That's redundant. Let's do that, though. We'll type that in with the thing and that and this number and that number. And it says,
welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to me. So let's do this. Let's get up and running the actual phone number. There it is, 855-785-7545. If you would like to call in and ask a question really about anything, you're more than welcome to do so. That is a toll-free number in the continental United States. But if you're using Skype, it's free. You put a +1 at the beginning. It's free. +1, 855-785-RJ45 will get you that. And you're welcome to call in or not. You can also ask questions in the chat room. Sometimes nobody calls in. We'll just do questions in the chat room. We shotgun them back and forth over the chat room and go through all of this and have all those pieces. This does indeed start at noon. As I just mentioned in the pre-show, all of my study groups start at noon. And obviously we had a time change from last week. So you may be on an old clock. So Eastern Daylight Time, noon, is where we are starting these study groups now. And as I mentioned, the state of Florida, where I am headquartered, is not going to, we don't think we're going to shift back. It still has to get federal approval, but I think we're going to be stuck on daylight time forever. So 6 months from now, it will be at 12 noon standard time, but it will really be 11 o'clock for us in Florida. All of us in Florida are going to have to figure out how this works. This is going to change everything. I have a process I go through whenever it's a day that we're doing a study group. There's a certain flow so that by 12 noon, I'm sitting here and able to do this, which doesn't always work as well as you might expect. Maybe it's exactly what you expect. The challenge, though, is now if I do it an hour earlier, I've got to change the system. Shouldn't be that hard for someone to do this. You would think the difference between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, but it's a thing. But it actually might help. Sometimes it's lunch. Do I have lunch before the study group? Do I have lunch after the study group? So maybe it works out. Maybe I changed the times completely. Some of you have said we should do it a different time at being here. So, we know that Arizona, in fact, and Hawaii are doing this, that stay on this on a single time zone. They never change. So it's very useful to have that there. So we're going to see if they allow Florida to make a change like this too. Why wouldn't we? We have to be different. That's why for all of these pieces to have those there and have those available here in Florida. So we're going to find out. I kind of like the idea of having more light at the end of the day. So some folks in the chat room, questions are coming in. Anthony's saying he's getting ready to take the 901 exam. That's for the A+. Friday, no prior IT experience, which is very common for someone taking the 901 exam. So it's exactly what you should be taking. But you just have the A+ course. You still don't think you're ready. Recommendations? Well, the first thing you should do is go to the exam objectives and go through the objectives and see how many you can check off. If you can explain that objective to someone else, what that objective means, what they refer to when they have that bullet point, and you can explain to someone else what that is, you can check that one off your list. But if you get down, it says RAID 1, RAID 0, RAID 5, and you're like, I don't know what the difference is between RAID 1, RAID 0, and RAID 5, then you might want to think about either cramming really quickly or rescheduling the exam. You can reschedule your exams for CompTIA 24 hours in advance. So if you're a couple days out and you're thinking, oh, I am just not ready for this, you can shift it. Move it out a little bit. Some people set a time frame when they start studying for the exam, and they book the exam when they buy their book. They literally schedule their exam when they pick up their book and start reading it and say, in 30 days, I'm going to take this exam. And then they get in the book and realize 30 days is not enough. Well, that's okay. You can adjust it. I think you can go online and change it as well. So there's some of that there. Some of the folks in the chat room didn't like the video this time. The video is all chosen by YouTube. The way this works, by the way, for those of you curious, we'll give you a little inside baseball. To my left here is the console for my TriCaster. That is a video switching device. I have coax coming from all of the video sources in this room to a single matrix switch. And then I tell the matrix switch what to send to my video switcher. And then I actually do the switching with it on this ginormous console in front of me. So I can hit a button and change things around. Well, you can't even see that. I can change things around by hitting the buttons that are in front of me. Which is great. I can stay in one place and you can see all of this. And this device here to my left is the one that is sending to you all of the video that YouTube gets. So I send a single stream to YouTube. YouTube takes it, and with whatever equipment they have magic equipment that takes it and reconfigures it so that it will render properly. They re-render it so that it will view properly on whatever you happen to be watching. So if you go to YouTube, you've got a choice. You could view this in 360p. You could view it in 480. If you're on a mobile device, it'll show you maybe 720p. It might show you different. But you've got a choice depending on the bandwidth that you're using. And in fact, I'm planning this year hopefully to upgrade to 1080p for the stream so that you'll have a choice between 1080 and 720 and 480 and 360. and 240. You got a number of options there, but YouTube does all of that. I just send the single stream, and they get a pristine 720p stream from me. And then it's when you're watching it, you're not really watching a stream from me. You're watching the stream that YouTube has grabbed. They've crunched it up a little bit, and now they're sending you a completely different stream. So whenever you're having a problem with the video display from YouTube, it's between you and YouTube. It's not between, it could be between me and YouTube, and then everybody would have a problem. But if it's just you, there's probably something with the way that session was set up. You can try refreshing the screen. You can try manually changing the resolution. There's some options there that you've got available. So some things that you can do to kind of help this piece and having there. The questions coming in about, I've got one on the phone line. Somebody was nice enough to call up. So let's go to that phone line. I've got some good questions coming in the chat room too. So I will come back to those. Let me get my speakers up and running, and we'll go to the 716 area code. Hi, caller. Are you there? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Brian. Can you hear me?
Hello, Brian. We can hear you great. What's your question?
Well, it's something of self-promotion for you, I think.
I like this already.
I've been pressured. Yeah. I've been pressured over the phones from a Florida company that changes their names every several weeks for money to do some of the same things that you are doing.
Okay.
And I just really, I don't think they're offering anything better than you are. I haven't gone into their material, but it's expensive to do so. And so I appreciate that you are there. I think that everything that you have is complete. And I just want to put that out there for everyone who's listening right now.
It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes. First, it isn't me doing that. So that gets me off the hook. That was close. But this is something that kind of the industry does in general. And it does this for all products. You've probably seen it. If you ever hand somebody off your email address and your phone number, they'll call you, and then they'll keep calling you, and they're trying to work that sales funnel for them because they have a quota that they need to get to, and they have products. And quite honestly, some of the products that are out there from these companies are pretty good. I mean, they can ask that amount of money because some of the products are pretty good. I've seen, of course, you will sometimes see online that we have a $5,000 training course. We've reduced the price to $25 just for you. Those are the ones you also need to kind of be concerned about from that perspective. Part of the reason I created this very first video series, which was the A+, was for kind of the story you're giving, because I got the same problem whenever I would try to get certifications. It was hard to find something that was good. It was hard to get a comparison between different products. And ultimately, nobody got these certifications because there wasn't any good material to be able to watch. And so that was the real impetus behind creating this monster that now drags me around by what used to be my hair. The challenge, though, is there's still some good stuff out there. I don't say that I've got everything you need to be able to pass your exam. You should use as many different resources as you can, but you do have to do some homework these days to find one that really makes sense for what you're doing. And fortunately, these days we've got the internet, and we can compare and contrast other people's stories to see what they're doing. Which exam are you studying for?
I have not yet taken the A+.
Okay.
I talked to you last week about taking a New York State exam, which is coming up in April.
Oh, yeah, right. This is, and they're probably very similar in the content, so it will help you if you go through and work through those pieces. The challenge you're going to have is finding the right kind of content. I have a list of what I recommend on my website from people that I have met with in person. These are companies I trust. I know that they treat their customers properly. And so I put them in a list of things that I have worked with these people and sat down face to face with them in their offices or at a trade show. And I have a relationship with them. And I know that if anything goes awry, I can always call them directly and say, hey, and I've never had to do this, by the way, but I can always call them directly and say, how can we fix this particular problem? Because I have that kind of relationship with them.
Right. Your endorsement carries a lot of weight with me.
I'm glad, because I want it to be that kind of understand. I've gone through this myself. I've had to find resources and work with other places, and sometimes it goes great. Sometimes it doesn't go so great. So I want you to avoid the not so great situations and at least give you some options that I know I like and maybe you'll like too.
Yes, and you're doing a great thing. I'm not sure how you make the numbers work for your own business model.
Me either.
But I sure appreciate it.
I appreciate that too, Brian. Thank you for calling, and best of luck with those exams.
Thank you.
That's always the challenge. We could have a longer conversation about business models on the internet, because I have gone through all of them. My major in college was a business major. I was not an IT major. This came up on one of the many chat rooms I attend and look at throughout the week. But the question came up about CSOs, the central security officers in organizations, and especially the one that was at Experian during their breach, which was very public. And she had a degree, I think it was in music. And people were saying they shouldn't let people have degrees in music be CSOs. And the problem was, when people who are my age or older went to college, there wasn't personal computers. We barely had desktop systems, quite honestly. There were personal computers, but they were 8088s. They were the very first iteration of personal computers. There was not an IT degree, much less one focusing on databases or security or network. Those things didn't exist. There was no antivirus software. There were no viruses. So those are the challenges. But I got my degree in business management, but I really like technology. So I evolved what I was doing to get a degree in management. And then I got to work with companies that made protocol analysis and network monitoring technologies. I worked with companies that cutting edge startup security companies that were creating the next generation firewalls of the world. And I didn't have a degree that was technically a technical degree. So you really can't look at that anymore. But now we do. Now we at least have the option out there. Some universities are figuring it out. Others, maybe not so much. They still think you should do programming if you want to go into IT. They think it's all about programming. A lot of people don't know IT, think that technology is programming. Some technology is programming. There's absolutely a very nice computer science side to technology, but a huge part of technology has nothing to do with programming. So that's I don't want to rant too much on those. We have more people holding on the phone. But when I think about what we should be doing to study and make things better, it's about things like this. It's learning how these things work and being able to help people make them work for them. It's really more about people than it is technology ultimately. We get down to it. More good questions coming in the chat room. We'll come right back to it once we go to the 775 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Oh, I hear myself. And 775 is going to say, oh, wait, I'm on the line and I'm live and we're listening in.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Daniel. I'm calling from Reno, Nevada.
Oh, hello, Daniel. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you today?
Hey, I was doing my assignments, but I wanted to find out, how do you design a wide area network? What steps should I consider to design a one?
It is not a simple answer to be able to answer how do you design a wide area network, because it all ultimately follows a particular path. So I'll give you the high level view of what we do in the industry when we're ready to design a WAN. I've been fortunate enough to be working for organizations that have had to go through the process of implementing a new wide area network. And I've also been on the other side where I have had technologies that helped people create a wide area network. So I've seen it from both sides of this. With anything in IT, you start with a series of requirements. So your organization might have 2 remote sites. You might have 200 remote sites. You might have, in the case of retail companies, 2,000 remote sites. Imagine you've got every retail store in a mall for these big companies, thousands and thousands and thousands, or companies like Lowe's and the Home Depot. They've got enormous number of locations. Think of their wide area network and what it must be like. So they have some certain requirements. And then you also have to think about, what are you going to put across that wide area network? Is it going to be just credit card transactions? Is it going to be large file transfers? Is it going to be doing imaging? Do you need a lot of speed so you can move those through the network very quickly? And then, of course, there's going to be a budgeting question. How much are you going to have to spend on all of this? We have to think about costs per month. How much is it going to cost to put it in? Do we need to buy new equipment so we can connect the WAN? And then ongoing, how much is this going to cost? We're going to have to sign a contract with some wide area network provider to be able to transport that from one end of the WAN to the other. There's also a need to understand how we're going to implement this. So not only are we designing the WAN, how do we even get it up and running? If we have 2,000 sites, do we have somebody local? We don't have somebody local in every town. Somebody who works in a store that sells women's clothing is not somebody who's going to be able to install a wide area network router. And we don't want them to. We want them to sell the clothing. We need someone else to go in who's an expert in doing the routing to be able to make that happen. So we have to think about the logistics around all of those pieces. That just gets you going. And at that point, now you start designing and talking to multiple wide area network providers. What can you give us that can fit these particular requirements? What type of speeds will we expect, and how much are we going to pay for that? That's where you're going to really spend a lot of time. Sometimes you create a formal RFP. That's a request for proposal. You send it out to all the big wide area network providers. They have to come in and give a presentation that says, we looked over your RFP and here's how we can solve your problem. And then ultimately, after that process is over and you've chosen a particular provider and the equipment that you need, now you have to go implement it. So sometimes this is very easy to do when you have 3 or 4 sites. Sometimes it takes a year to be able to go through that entire process to get exactly the right thing, because it might be, you might have some very specific requirements that you really have to test before it's ever implemented. So becomes a little bit of a challenge sometimes to do that. But that's at a very high level. That's how the decisions and the process is to finally go from the beginning to the end of implementing a wide area network. Does that help, Daniel?
Yes, it does. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Best of luck, sir. Thank you. That's it's a fun project, by the way, to do something like that. If you're ever in a situation where you want to be involved with something like that, it is a lot of fun. You learn a lot of new technologies. You're plugging in a lot of new equipment. You're learning how these technologies work with each other. It's a lot of fun. In the chat room, real quick, I'll go back to the phones. I see you're holding. Thank you, callers, for holding. Over my left shoulder is an amateur radio. I am an amateur radio licensed extra. That's is that a Yaesu? What have I got there? I forget what I put. That's a Yaesu 747. It's an older one. That's one I picked up at a government auction in Florida for $250. I don't know, 15 years ago. It was right after Hurricane Andrew, when I was living in South Florida. And I realized right after Hurricane Andrew came through, phones don't work when the antenna's blown over. So that was my biggest issue. Was we needed some type of communication. We had cell phones that were worthless. How do you communicate then? Well, the only thing left when everything blows over, amateur radio. That did it for me, and that's why I went out and got licensed and found some equipment and have it there. So I am AG4DX, Alpha Golf 4 Delta X-ray. The challenge with plugging it in, though, wherever you go, seems to be hard. So I haven't set up an antenna yet in the studio. I really, really, really need to do that so I can get back on the air. I love doing CW, what most people think of as Morse code, because it's a digital communication that you don't need a lot of digital technology to use. You can do very low power. And there's just something about not using I do a lot of technology during the day. It's nice, the idea where I don't have to do a lot of technology in some of the things I do outside the studio. So that just appeals to me. AG4DX. I have that there. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to have also the knowledge. It's a great set of tests to go through. If some of you have never gone through the tests to get a license from the federal government to be able to communicate over amateur radio frequencies, you really do learn a lot, and it actually helps you a lot for wireless networking, 802.11. And you start learning about polarization at these higher frequencies and realizing, oh, that's what they mean. Oh, that's why 5 gigahertz is absorbed more than 2.4 gigahertz with these types of things that we're using. There's more bounce, those types of things. It's really interesting. It's a very interesting hobby. Even if you, I hope you do get an amateur radio or even just a handheld, an HT, a handy talkie, as they say, to be able to talk to people locally with the local repeaters. You'll learn a lot about wireless networking when doing that. Back to the phones, the 480 area code, California checking in. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, 480. What's your name?
Oh, yeah. My name is Frank. I'm calling from Arizona.
Oh, in Arizona. Thank you, Frank, for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, no, I was just calling to thank you for all of your material. I used a lot of your stuff to pass the Network Plus. I just took it on this past Monday.
Oh.
Passed with an 800.
Oh, that's a great score, too. Congratulations. Which version of the Network Plus exam did you take?
I took the N10006. I was kind of in that limbo where I didn't know whether to go towards the 007 because I knew it was coming out. But from your advice, you were saying that there was some overlap, so I just went with the N10006. I studied for about, I think, 3 to 4 months, pretty hard. So yeah, at that point I went and took it and passed the exam, thankfully.
Fantastic. Congratulations on your new Network Plus certification. It is probably some of the best knowledge you're going to be able to use in your IT career. So it's a lot of people don't realize that when you're taking a certification exam, is this really going to help me or not? But ultimately it does. Now, without spoiling, you obviously can't tell us anything about the exam because you did sign a candidate agreement that provides non-disclosure. You're not able to really give us any details. But for the people that are studying for their N10006 right now, are there particular topics that you would recommend they focus on before they walk into their exam? And knowing, of course, everybody's exam is completely different. So your exam is going to be completely different than someone else's. But what things really helped you when you walked in?
I think what I did is that I purchased multiple resources and practice tests so that way I can get a different feel for different verbiage and different ways of being asked questions.
Nice.
I don't think that there's one source out there that completely emulates how CompTIA gives their questions out.
Right.
It's very difficult the way I'm not sure if they're trying to trip people up, but the thing is that I didn't find any test out there that sounded exactly the way CompTIA does their questions.
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's they have a unique way of positioning their questions. But I'd say if you're able to go down the exam objectives and be very comfortable with every one of those objectives, and I know there's a lot, but once you're able to go down that list and say, I got a good grasp of what I'm looking at here, you're ready at that point to take the test. I purchased Mike Myers' practice tests. I did a lot of your practice tests, Exam Compass, Pocket Prep.
Okay.
I mean, so many. I was just so scared that I wasn't going to be able to really understand the questions. But after a while, regardless of how the question was being asked, I was able to answer them correctly. So, yeah, that's really how I prepared myself.
I think it's a great strategy. And I tell people all the time, you really need 4 things before you walk into the exam. You need to get a good book. You need to watch some videos. You need to do as much Q&A as possible, which you were able to do. And I also tell people to get a lot of good hands-on as kind of a way to solidify those things you're learning into something that's more physical in the physical world. Did you have a lot of experience in networking, and how much hands-on did you do?
So yeah, right now I'm like a junior network administrator for a nonprofit here in Phoenix.
Great.
And so I started off at the help desk, so doing, end user support and, getting things up and running for users. Then now I'm a junior tech. And yeah, so I mean, I had a little bit of experience, and I got to collaborate with the network team and the security team and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I've only been in this environment for about going on 3 years now, so not a whole lot of experience, but I had enough to become a little more familiar with it. Really, the practicing and the studying is really what kind of solidified my my knowledge and able to get most of the verbiage down and all the acronyms down, and you know, a lot of the Ethernet standards and stuff like that. So I had some experience, but not a lot. But you know, I read on Reddit all the time how people have no experience and they study for 6 months and go in there and smash out the test. So it is possible.
It is
but
possible.
I was lucky enough to have some experience.
You were in a pretty good situation. In fact, it's one that I always recommend that people do, because you start on the help desk. I started on the help desk. A lot of people are in a large organization or even smaller organizations where you're at the help desk and you're talking all the time to the network team, to the desktop management team, to the security team. You know who those people are. You should always take advantage of those relationships that are there in the same building as you. If they're working on a new network rollout, you should always volunteer to help them move things around on the weekend if they're there. Or if you have questions about things that you're learning on the certification, stop them in the hallway and say, I'm reading about dynamic routing protocols. Do we use dynamic routing protocols? How do those work where we are? Which dynamic routing protocols are we using? People are more than happy to share the knowledge of this information with you. Take advantage of those if you are in that particular situation. Well, congratulations, Frank. What's next for you?
I'm studying now. Like, so since I just got done studying, I'm just going to continue. I'm going to go towards the CCNA.
Nice.
And then probably do the Security Plus as well at the same time, just because I have that availability at work where I'm encouraged to go towards my certification. So I'm lucky enough to have that environment. But yeah, I'll be doing that next. Real quick, I wanted to verify. So since I have the non-disclosure agreement that I agreed to with the test, is there not a specific type of question that I could ask you to maybe get some clarification? Because this question kind of has me scratching my head a little bit.
Well, one of the things, maybe you could send it to me directly in an email. We can go back and forth. Just hit the contact us link at the top of the website, and we can send information back and forth. I'd be glad to do that. Okay.
Because I asked my security analyst at work today, and he was kind of scratching his head too. So maybe it's just the way that CompTIA worded it, and maybe how I remember it. But yeah, I'll do that. But yeah, I really want to thank you, and thanks so much for all your content.
You're quite welcome. Congratulations, Frank. Best of luck.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's it might be a head scratcher. It might be one of those questions where there's not an answer. I see those from time to time. We run into those quite often for working through those and having those pieces. Let me check the chat room real quick. We got calls coming in, so let me go back to the calls very quickly. How much more likely would you be to get a job if you had certifications over people that were in the field longer but no certifications? And the answer is, I have no idea, because it's all up to the hiring manager. It's all up to the person who's having the interview with you. I think certifications serve two purposes. First, you learn something. People always talk about certifications as having some practical career thing, and they do, but you almost forget that during the process of learning what you need to know for the certification, you actually now know what that stuff is. You actually can do your job better. And you're not as afraid of some of these technologies because you just went through the process of learning it and now you know it. That's already a value. Secondly is the process of getting the interview. Sometimes the certifications are something that the HR filter for human resources will figure. They'll look for these things, and if you happen to fire on their filter, you now get moved up so somebody can look at your resume. So having those certifications on your resume may get you through an automated process, which then gets you to a person. At that point, it's up to you. Once everybody gets in the room, now it's going to be up to you. And that's why I always tell people, make sure you're active in your local user groups. Go to your Microsoft user group, your Cisco user group, your VMware user group, whatever it is that matches your interest, and meet the people who are there. Don't go in the back and sit down and then leave when it's over. Meet the people that are there. Usually there's pizza. You can have a soda. You can sit down with folks, eat some pizza, and say, where do you work? What do you do? I'm in a help desk and I'm trying to get a job doing networking. What do you guys look for in your organization for networking? Can I add you on LinkedIn? You need to get in the same circles as these folks, because they're going to sometime find out they walk in and their network engineer who is in training just had to move because their family had to move to a different state, and now they need somebody. But wait, they met you last week. You were looking for a network job. You'd be perfect for this. Let me hit you on LinkedIn. That happens all the time, and I know it because I've done it myself. I have reached out to people on LinkedIn saying, we just had an opening here that would be perfect for you. You should consider doing this. Whether you do it or not, that was something I would not have available if I didn't keep up with what they were doing, know where they were, and had a way to talk to them. So don't dismiss that. It can be extremely useful to have that there. And a certification is not a replacement for anything else. A certification has its own value. A formal degree has its own value. They don't swap out. There's no comparison. Those are apples and oranges. So the more things that you have that you can put on your resume, the better off you're going to be. Back to the calls. South Florida checking in, 954. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hello, caller. What's your name?
My name is Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. What's your question?
I just took the Network Plus and I passed it today at Miami-Dade Community College.
Right on.
And I just wonder, do you all ever talk about the Server Plus?
Yeah. There's So are you looking at doing more with servers and operating systems? Where do you plan on going from here now that you have your Network Plus?
I'm probably going to work for Best Buy, the Geek Squad, for a little while, just
Sure.
to, cut my teeth.
Absolutely. And in fact, on that one, I think A Plus and Server Plus are two very good places to go because they do a lot with Windows operating systems and other operating systems, Mac as well, and having a knowledge of how to troubleshoot at the server and operating system level is incredibly useful as well. And in fact, places like Best Buy look for A+ certification to do that kind of thing. And it's a great place to start because you learn so much about so many different things, and it's a good jumping off point to go to the next step. What ultimately, when you start looking at things that you're interested in, now that you've done Network Plus, and congratulations on that certification, are there certain things you're now finding interest you more than others?
Well, I'm a PC gamer, so I'm probably going to try to stay with hardware.
I think that's not a bad idea. I have a lot of people that I used to work with that focused on operating systems, getting the servers maintained and up and running, and people that were working and managing enormous data centers around the world and making sure all those data centers were running properly. And it all came down to making sure all of the servers had everything they needed to get running. And they had a great career focusing on that aspect of maintaining the hardware and making sure the hardware and operating systems were happy. And I always thought that was great. Whenever you walk into a big data center and there's its own cooling systems and it's all self-contained and there's tons of security and you've got these neatly laid out aisles of technology that are humming along, it is a great job to have.
Yeah. And I also got a certificate from Miami-Dade for they program, which is the computer repair installer.
Nice. Do they also does Miami-Dade also provide any type of college credit for getting A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus?
No, they'll reimburse you. The program is for that, but if you pass it, they'll reimburse. They already reimbursed me for my A+.
Great. That's fantastic. There's some community colleges in Florida that will give you college credit for actually getting certifications too. I kind of like the reimbursement part myself.
Yeah, and they reimburse me for Network Plus, which I just passed today, and the Server Plus, which I'm probably going to take sometime in April.
I wish I had Server Plus content. It's one that I don't have a course for Server Plus yet. It's not quite as popular as A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus, but I've looked through the exam objectives for Server Plus, and everything in there is spot on. If you're going to be managing servers, it's the right topics and things you should know to be able to manage that environment.
Okay. Well, like I said, thank you for your material because it was very beneficial for me.
That's great, Kevin. Congratulations on your new Network Plus. Best of luck with the program that you're in and with the upcoming Server Plus. Let us know how it goes.
All right, thank you.
Take care. That's fantastic. The idea behind these community colleges, and it's probably outside of Florida. I know Florida because that's where I live, and that's where my kids go to college. But check your local community college and universities. Sometimes CompTIA and other certifications count towards practical hours of credit from those organizations. So there might be a double value to have that there. So have a look at it and see if that works for you too. And as I used to live in South Florida, so I know the folks at Miami-Dade Community College very well. They have tons of technology. And I think the community colleges probably are doing a better job of changing with the times than perhaps the traditional four-year universities. At least that's what I'm finding now. Maybe they can catch up with each other and have that there. From the chat room, other questions coming in. I should do my study groups on Twitch. You can have chat on the same platform as the video stream, maybe so, but I intentionally don't have chat. YouTube has a chat as well. It's pretty good. Not as good as the one on Twitch, which is very good. But I kind of like the chat that we have on the website, the 24/7. It's always here, something I can control a little bit better. And Twitch isn't necessarily, they have some, IRL in real world type video streams that are not necessarily gaming focused, but they really do want your stuff to be in some ways associated with gaming. So I don't tend to go Twitch. I have been considering a separate third-party system that would not only host the video, but also provide a chat on the same page. It's a really nice setup. And I've sent some messages back and forth to try to look into that as well. Kind of goes with the 1080p. I mentioned earlier, I want to do 1080p streaming instead of the 720p that we have here. Some of you were asking, well, why don't you do 1080p? Well, I could. The software that I'm using in my TriCaster only supports 720p streaming. Interestingly enough, I can do 1080p from this, but it's a healthy upgrade to do this. And I think what I instead am going to do is get a third-party product that will plug into my existing SDI video cable connection and stream out 1080p, so it's separate from the TriCaster. I'm trying to make it now. I used to have the TriCaster was my all-in-one, and it still is an exceptional platform for the videos that I shoot. I mean, this is effectively is what I shoot when I'm shooting a video. It's this exact configuration. I'm talking to the camera. I'm recording what's on my screen. The TriCaster is recording all of that. I have separate recordings going down here. It's like I ran out of disk space on one of those because one is not spinning anymore. The objective, though, was to have everything in one place. But now I'm finding if I separate these things out, I'll do the recording down here rather than on the TriCaster. I'll do the streaming from a different product rather than the TriCaster. And I think ultimately it gives me a little more flexibility and actually doesn't cost as much either. The 720p stream is pretty good. I agree, Sparks, in the chat room. It's a pretty nice stream, but we could do better. I've got the bandwidth. Why not take advantage of it? So that's the next step in all of this. Really, I'm shooting to do more 4K in here. I don't think my training videos necessarily need 4K video, but a lot of what I would like to do in the future, I think would be nice to have the 4K. I think it would look much better when I compress it down into 1080p if it was shot on 4K. So there's some advantages to going to 4K, and it's getting much less expensive to do it that way. Gotta pay off all this other stuff first. I have to pay off this TriCaster loan to be able to do that. We're back to the business side of internet streaming, aren't we? How it always gets back to those pieces. We got a few more minutes. I think my voice is hanging in there. So if anybody has other questions you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to at 855-785-RJ45 to have that here. The live streaming at 720p works pretty well. We're having conversations now about it in the chat room. It works well because it doesn't need a ton of bandwidth on the upload side. But my particular network connection, I use Comcast as my business internet connection. And I've got 100 megabit down and 20 megabit up, which is pretty good. I think they're going to kind of leave me there until they plan on bringing fiber into our particular geography, which who knows when something like that is going to happen. But you only need 4 to 5 megabit upload for a really nice, high quality 1080p. You can get away with even a little bit less. You can get away with 4 megabit for even a little more compressed 1080p. But I'd like it to be a little bit better. I always like it to be the best that it can be. That's the objective with everything that I do. I never want my products to be good enough. I always want them to be better than anybody would ever expect. And so it's the same way with the uploading of video and doing live streams, because I've got that 20 megabit pipe and I want to be able to use 4 or 5 megabits of that to be able to do these live streams. So it just looks good. I want it to look as good as it can, as low as compression. And I only have so much capabilities and what I'm able to do with compression because I send a particular stream to YouTube and then they reconvert it. They convert it to all kinds of different things. So I never know what exactly the conversion is going to do on that side. So I try to give them the best possible stream. So when they re-render, it looks as good as possible coming down to your local devices. And YouTube does a really good job at this. They've been doing live streaming a very long time. It's free to me. I mean, there's ads and things they stick around it and things that they do, but it's got to be something that costs them a lot of money. And I hope they're making it up on the backside with all the ads, because that's a lot of cash to be able to stream. Because I've looked at doing that myself. What if I did all my own streaming? I set up my own delivery network and I just threw it out there and you connected to it. That's one way to do it. But it's kind of nice because as soon as we're done here, the stream on YouTube is now done. It now is available immediately after we're finished here. So there's some nice advantages to having that there as well. And then of course, there's advertising and other things that help keep things going around here that are automatically put around the YouTube side of things as well. So when you say they should pay me, they sort of do. They sort of do send me a check every month for advertising that helps keep all of this going too. So that's another part of the business inside baseball part of this is how do you give everything away for free or most things away for free and still be able to have a viable business? That's a very good conversation, and we could talk for days on ideas and thoughts around that piece of it. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes to figure it out. And like anything else, you should just try it, see if it works. If it doesn't, you hit the wall head on, you pick up and you try something else. And this has gone through a number of iterations to get to where we are now. And we're going to keep changing things. Over the next year, you're going to see other things happening. So we have plans. There's lots of plans to be able to do that. So hopefully that's the thing that'll keep you coming back to. A lot of you have used these videos and other materials throughout your training, and I want to always make something that you're able to take advantage of and able to use. So maybe that will help out as we go forward. We've gone through another month of Network Plus Study Group. We've come to the end of what my voice is able to do. That's how I know that we've hit the end of the show. Great questions, by the way, this week in the after show. Thank you for joining us and hanging out and asking questions afterwards and trying to figure out what to do next and how to set up a WAN and the things that you've done with Network Plus and the tests you've taken. I think all of that's very valuable for other people that are planning exactly the same things. Thank you for calling in. Thanks for your comments in the chat room. And thank you for being here throughout the rest of the month. We would not be able to do this without you. The study group takes place every month. If you're someone who likes Security Plus, you can come back next week. Next Wednesday, we have our Security Plus study group. And then in the beginning of April, we start this all over again with the A Plus Network Plus and Security Plus study groups. You can always check in at professormesser.com/calendar to find out when the next one will be for you. Thanks for joining us this time. We will see you next time on the Network Plus study group.